Good afternoon. Welcome to Lunch with Books. Please turn off your cell phones at this time. This Thursday we'll continue the People's University Ancient History with the rise and fall of Empire, Rome. Dr. Dina will be back for that Thursday at 7 p.m. Next Tuesday, Michelle Dusser. She's the great-granddaughter of Ida B. Wells. And Michelle will be here. She's written several books. We have two of them regarding her ancestor, Ida B. Wells, who, if you don't know, was a journalist, a suffragist, and civil rights leader in a time when it was dangerous to be one. And I really hope we get a good turnout, so I hope to see you next week. Now, today we have a special guest for you. His name is Paul Robeson, and he's a singer, he's an actor, he's a professional football player, and an activist, and he's traveling the country, and here he is, Paul Robeson.
I won't introduce Mr. Robeson. My name is Marvin Jefferson. I was here 2 years ago, and I did Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And of course, COVID hit, and so it took us all for a ride. But I'm happy to be here again to portray Paul Robeson. This is Paul Robeson of Chautauqua, and I'm sure if you don't know what Chautauqua means, the first person historical narration, first-person historical interpretation, which is a real fancy way of saying that I am going to portray a historical figure, and of course the historical figure is Paul Robeson. There are three parts to Chautauqua. The first part is Paul is going to tell you some things about his life. The second part is Paul will open up the floor for questions. If you have any questions to ask him, Paul will hopefully answer them for you as best as he can. And the third part is I will step out of the Robeson persona and answer questions as Marvin Jefferson about Paul. Questions that Paul could not or would not answer given time constraints, personality, and so forth and so on. So the third part, Paul will be speaking to you from the year 1958, which is a very important year for Paul. So if you have any questions, they have to be 1958 and before. If you ask anything after 1958, Paul will not know. Marvin Jefferson will know, but not Paul. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to bring on Mr. Robeson. Of course, as we all know, Paul was a great singer. I'm going to do the best I can. So, given that, I want to thank you all for spending your Valentine's Day, or at least part of it, with me being here. I enjoy so much coming to the Ohio County Library, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. I dreamed I saw Joe that night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never die, says he. I never die, says he. In Salt Lake City, Joe says I am standing by my bed. They framed you on a murder charge, said Joe, but I ain't dead. Said Joe, but I ain't. The copper bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. It's more than guns to kill a man. Said Joe, I didn't die. Said Joe, I didn't die. And standing there as big as life and smiling with his eyes, said Joe, what they can never kill went on to organize. Went on to organize. from San Diego up to Maine, in every mine and mill, where workers fight and organize, is there you find Joe Hill. Is there you'll find Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night. Alive is you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never die, says he. I never die, says he. I never die, says he. Thank you. Welcome, brothers and sisters. Well, I'm pleased to be here today, and I have some interesting news. I just received my passport. It's a long time coming. For those who may not know, my passport, my right to travel, was taken away from me in 1950. And it's been a long 8-year struggle. But the Supreme Court this year, to their credit, stated that you cannot take away a person's right to travel because of their political beliefs and associations. Now, there's been a great deal of controversy regarding what my political beliefs are. And usually, when someone were to ask me this question, my answer would be, it's none of your business. The Communist Party is a legal party, much like the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. In protecting the rights of American citizens, our constitutional rights, it's none of your business unless you care to go with me to the ballot box when I vote and see. Now, that would usually be my answer. But given the news today, I'm going to get a little more in depth. Also, I have a book out this year called Here I Stand. And the reason I wrote the book is because a lot of people had a lot of questions in regard to Paul Robeson. And so I wanted to write a book that would explain my views as well as possible. But for today, I'm going to explain a little bit further. In 1946, I was called before the Tenney Committee. The Tenney Committee is a joint House and Senate committee, which was started in California, allegedly to root out communism. I was called before this committee, and I was asked the question whether or not I was a communist, which I answered under oath that I was not. Although it was a known fact, certainly by 1946, that I am a socialist. For me, socialism represents humankind evolving at a higher stage of existence. Socialism, in my mind, is culturally, ethically, morally superior to a system based on production for private profit. And I've stated this many times. From tribalism to feudalism, feudalism to capitalism, capitalism to socialism represent humankind growing and evolving. It has nothing to do with plot or conspiracies. I've never been a part of any plot or conspiracy, and I don't know anyone who has. So these things were very well known, certainly, by 1946. Also, by 1946, it was well known that I am an extreme anti-fascist. Fascism is an evil that has to be fought. And while I lived in London in the 1930s, I was invited to visit Russia in 1934. And on our way there, we stopped in Berlin. And there was an incident that took place that disturbed me so greatly that I knew that fascism had to be fought wherever it was, either in Europe, in particular Spain, where I was definitely involved there because I was supporting the Republican forces in their fight against Franco, backed by the might of Hitler and Mussolini, or here in this country, under under the guise of the Ku Klux Klan and the White Citizens Council. And so it was known, certainly through my support of our troops in their fight in World War II, supporting them with war bonds and victory bonds, it was known that I am definitely an anti-fascist. Also, certainly by 1946, it was known that I am an anti-colonialist. Again, living in London in the 1930s, I met many African students and dock workers telling me about what was happening in their nation, in their struggle against colonialism. Some of these students are well known now. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Nigeria, Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya, and even in India, Nehru, who was Gandhi's right hand. All of these men were friends of mine. While in London, my wife and I joined the West African Student Union. And in 1937, I co-founded the Council on African Affairs, which is the only lobbying group at that time to deal specifically with the liberation of Africa from colonialism. So these things were known by 1946. Now, 10 years later, 1956, I was called before the House Un-American Activity Committee. That's a very strange title. The House Un-American Activity Committee. Seems to me the people running the House Un-American Activity Committee were the real Un-Americans. In any case, I would call before the tribunal and I would ask the question again whether or not I was a communist, which I refused to answer. Now, my refusal is no mystery. I answered the question sufficiently in 1946 under oath. When I came back to the United States in 1939, intelligence agencies had been following me. There may be some intelligence agent now, I don't know. But in any case, they've been following me ever since. So they knew that I was not a communist. If I had answered that I was not a communist and they knew that I was, after taking an oath, that's called perjury. And they would have done their best to put me under the jail. They know no such thing was true. Now, during the question and answer session, things got a little bit, shall we say, heated. And someone had asked me rather pointedly, well, Mr. Robeson, since you love Russia so much, why did you not stay there? And I answered back rather pointedly. My father was a slave here. My people died building this country. I'm going to stay here and have a part of it just like you. And no fascist-minded people will drive me from it. Is that clear? Needless to say, they didn't like me very much at the House Un-American Activity. And that's fine, because I don't like them very much either. Many people have asked the question, who, what, and why of Paul Robeson. Why have I taken stands that affected my livelihood, my career, even put my life at risk? And really the only way to know that is for any of us, is to examine our past, to examine those influences that make us who we are. And so begging your patience, I'm going to talk a little bit about my beginnings, not to foster agreement. You don't have to agree with me. I just want to put it forth so that you understand why I am the way I am. Now, there is a song that as I evolve, the song evolves. There's an old man called the Mississippi. That's the old man I don't like to be. Now, of course, that song is Old Man River. It was written by Oscar Hammerstein II and Jerome Kern. It was written for a musical called Showboat that I performed in 1928 in the London production. And then we did another production here in the United States on Broadway. And subsequently, I did the film in 1936. Now, when I first sang the song, the lyrics were a little bit different. They went something like this. Niggers all work on the Mississippi, niggers all work while the white folks play. Pulling them books from dawn till sunset, having no rest till the judgment day. Now, I had to change those lyrics, particularly that word. And so when I went to Jerome and Oscar, I asked, well, could you change it to a word that's a little less incendiary? And so the word we came up with at the time was the word darkness. Not a big change. But as Old Man River, but as I changed a great deal, Old Man River changed a great deal. And so when I sing Old Man River today, it goes something like this. There's an old man called the Mississippi. That's the old man I don't like. What does he care if the world got troubles? What does he care if the land ain't free? River, that old man river, he must know something, but don't say nothing. He just keeps rolling, he keeps on rolling along. He planters, cotton, and them that plant them is soon forgotten. But old man river, he'll just keep rolling along. You and me, we sweat and strain, body all aching and racked with pain. Tote that barge, lift that pail, you show a little grit, and you land in jail. I keep laughing instead of crying. I must keep fighting until I'm dying, and old man river, he'll just keep rolling along. That's old man river today. I was born in Princeton, New Jersey, 1898 on April the 9th. My father was the Reverend William Drew Robeson. My mother, Maria Louisa Buster Robeson. Now, my mother was born in Philadelphia. Her great-great-grandfather was Cyrus Buster. He was a Revolutionary War hero. He provided bread for General Washington's troops at Valley Forge during the Revolutionary War. He purchased his freedom. And so my mother belonged to that small group of Negroes that existed in the country at the time who were known as being free. My mother was born in Philadelphia. She was a school teacher prior to marrying my father. Now, my father was born in the South, North Carolina to be exact. My father was a slave. My father escaped from slavery when he was 15 years old through the Underground Railroad, where he may have met Harriet Tubman. And he went to various schools in the North. And he worked his way all the way up to Lincoln University, which is the oldest institution of higher learning for Negroes in this country. There he got his Bachelor of Arts degree in 4 years, and took another 3 years and got his divinity degree. My father rose from the depths of slavery all the way to being a pastor. He was the pastor of the Witherspoon Street Presbyterian Church in Princeton, New Jersey for 21 years. My father was an extraordinary individual. My father influenced me more than any other person. My father believed in two main philosophies of life. One was to grow to become the greatest of who you are, to fulfill your maximum human potential. And hand in hand with that was to be loyal to your convictions. You stick to your principles no matter what. No matter what the outcome, no matter what the sacrifice. And my father believed in those ideas. He passed them on to his children. Now in 1901, when I was 3 years old, really too young to understand what my father was doing at the time, my father's ideals were put to the test. You see, during this time, black people were being lynched. Now, lynching is an abominable crime. You have maybe 1 or 2 persons who are hunted down like animals and killed in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people, literally cheering on this murder. My father, being the man he was, spoke out against this injustice using his pulpit as a platform. He didn't believe in violence, but but he did believe in speaking out. Now, for those who may not know, let me tell you a little about Princeton, New Jersey. Princeton, New Jersey was a very segregated town. It was a Jim Crow town. One could say that Princeton, New Jersey is up south. In any case, the people who ran the town of Princeton did not like the idea that my father was speaking out. They did not like the idea that my father had the respect of both black and white in the town, and so the word was given that my father was ousted. He was fired from his position that he held for 21 years. He didn't allow any anger or bitterness to affect him. He just took the next job available, and that job was being a laborer. He was hauling ashes, the burnt remnants of things from one place in town to another. He was also a coachman, what we would call today a taxi driver, taking the young students from Princeton University down to the shore and other places in New Jersey. I haven't spoken a great deal about my mother. There's a reason for that. In 1904, right before I turned 6 years old, something horrible happened to her and to the entire family. At the time, my mother was nearly blind. She had cataracts in her eyes. She was nearly an invalid. She could barely walk. She was in the kitchen with my brother Ben, who was there to help her place something on the floor. We had an old-fashioned stove, a coal stove. And for some reason, the door, the panel to the stove came open, and some of the coals, hot coals, fell upon my mother's dress, which was very long. Now, because she couldn't see, she didn't know what was happening. She could only feel, and by the time she felt, this part of her body was engulfed in flames. When she tried to put the flame out with her arms, this part of her body caught on fire as well. My brother Ben fought panicking to put the flame down. He went into the street, calling for friends and neighbors, anyone. But it was too late. My mother died some days after. She waited for my father to return home so she could talk to him about what would happen to the children. You see, there were 5 of us. It was my brother William, my brother Reeve, my brother Ben, my sister Marion, and myself. I was the baby, the last child. I don't really know where I was during this horrific event. Some family members have stated that I was outside and I came in and I saw this. Others say that I saw it and I went and hid. In any case, the pain of the event was so great that it literally blocked out all memory of my mother. Try as I might to remember her, I simply can't, beyond seeing her laying in the casket at the funeral. What would we do now? Here we have a man who lost his job that he held for 21 years, and then 3 years later, he loses his beloved mate, my mother. Well, fortunately, we lived in Princeton, and although Princeton was very segregated, the Negro community of Princeton was very kind to us during this time. You see, my 2 older brothers, they were in college. The other 2 children, they were in a boarding school. That left me alone with Pop. And Pop oftentimes had to leave town to go to work. So he would leave me in the care of various friends and family members and neighbors, the Negro community of Princeton. They were very kind to me. Oh, they would house me and feed me all kinds of goodies like black-eyed peas and collard greens and yams and cornbread, which I ate a great deal of. And they would talk to me. They would say things like, well, you're going to be somebody, Paul. There's something special about you, boy. You just wait and see. Now, of course, I didn't understand all that they were saying, but I would listen to them. I grew to love them because I saw them as being the embodiment of what I felt all human beings should be. kind and giving, loving and sharing, and growing to love them, I learned to love myself. And in learning to love myself, that gave me the foundation to love all people. They would also sing. They sing all kinds of songs, gospel songs and blues songs, songs of joy, songs of sadness, and songs of resistance. Although I didn't understand how important these songs would be until I got much older. We moved from Princeton in 1907 to Westfield, New Jersey, and although I've been to many other places all over the world, for me, Princeton, that Negro community of Princeton, will always be home. I got a home in that rock, don't you see? I got a home in that rock, don't you see? Between earth and sky, what I heard my Savior cry, you got a home in that rock, don't you see? We moved to Westfield, New Jersey. Now, we stayed in Westfield for 3 years. Westfield, New Jersey was very interesting. It was the first time I had gone to school with whites. There were so few black people in the town, they didn't see it as a threat, and they integrated the school. And I got along pretty well. 2, my father built another church from the ground up when he became pastor again. And 3, it was one of the few times and the last time that I disobeyed my father. Now, you know, when we're young, we always disobey our parents at some point. Well, this was my turn. My father wanted me to do something. I can't remember what exactly, and I told him no. He said, come here. I ran, he ran after me. And I ran across the road, and as he followed behind me, he fell down and broke one of his most needed teeth. I went back. I helped him up to his feet. I can't tell you the shame that I felt. He was a man who I loved more than anyone else in the world, who would do anything for me, and I disobeyed him. And because I disobeyed him, it injured him. A tremendous source of discipline for me. My father never had to admonish me again, and I will always remember Westfield, New Jersey for that. We moved from Westfield 1910 to Somerville, New Jersey. Now, in Somerville, New Jersey, I went to high school, starting in 1911. And the high school was integrated, had many white friends, and they were very kind to me, and all my teachers were white, were very kind and giving, this allowed me to excel. I did many things in Somerville High School. I was on the debating team where I was debating champion 4 years in a row. I was on the school newspaper where I wrote the sports page. I was on the drama club where I acted. I was on the glee club where I sang. I played football, baseball, basketball, track and field. Everything went just fine for me in Somerville High School except for one thing. Dr. Ackerman, high school principal, he didn't like me. He didn't like any Negro, but he really hated me. And every time I did something right, he tried to find something wrong about it. Now, one day I came in late. That's not true. I came in late many Early to bed, early to rise was not one of my strong points, and even though we lived just a few hundred yards away from the school, I had a bad habit of coming in late. In any case, I came in this one time. He caught me in the hallway. He railed against my person. He tried to denigrate me, and he sent me home. Now, when I got home, my father wanted 2 things. 1, why was I sent home so early? And 2, if I had done something wrong, why wasn't I? You see, back in those days, teachers and administrators had the right to spank the students if they were wayward. I had something to say about that. I said, now look, Paul, I'm getting a little bit bigger now. I don't care what you do to me. But if that old hateful principal puts his hands on me, I'm going to try my best to break his neck. Now, my father knew the kind of man Dr. Ackerman was, so he let it go at that. But despite Dr. Ackerman, I graduated from Somerville High School at the top of my class. Now, in 1915, there was an examination test that was given by the state of New Jersey for a full 4-year academic scholarship to go to Rutgers College, now Rutgers University. I wanted to go to Lincoln University, like my father and my brother William, but because we didn't have a lot of money, we decided to take that test, pass it, get that scholarship, go to Rutgers, that's that. Much easier said than done, believe me. I studied so hard I thought my brain was going to explode. I kept studying and reading late into the night. I took that test. I passed it. I got that scholarship, and something happened within me. Something clicked. I knew equality may be denied me, but I knew I was not inferior to anyone or anybody. So with this newfound confidence in myself, I went to Rutgers College. Because I had done so well on the Somerville football team, I decided I was going to join the Rutgers football team. Feel free to laugh. I'm going to look like a fool coming down the road, a lamb innocently going to the slaughterhouse. Let me tell you what happened when I went to Rutgers. You see, in my first year, I was the only black person there. The only one. Think about that. I stepped onto the football field hoping to try out for the team. I saw nothing but older, angry, white football players who really didn't want me there. I attempted to make a play. Someone ran up to me, punching me in my face, breaking my nose. My whole face was bloody. Before I got a chance to respond, someone dropped their knee on my shoulder, dislocating it. And then a whole mob of football players gathered around me, punching me, kicking me, beating me, stomping me. This went on for the entire scrimmage. I was almost killed that day. I was lucky to escape with my life. I had to stay in bed for 10 days straight. Now, during that time, my brother William comes to visit me. I'm pouring my heart out to him, telling him, William, I got funds to which I'm working. If I don't, they're going to kill me. This is what William said to me. Well, Paul, I understand how you feel. I went through similar at the University of Pennsylvania. But I would hate to think, and I'm sure Pop would hate to think, that our family had a quitter in it. You see, that William had a way with words. He knew Pop would not accept quitting. And my father had oftentimes told me that to be the first in anything, particularly if you're a Negro, means you have to take whatever they give you, because you're going to make it easier for those other Negro boys who are coming in behind you. So I went back to Rutgers, and I tried out again for the Rutgers football team. Now this time, I grew eyes in the back of my head, because that was not going to happen to me again. I tried out again for the Rutgers football team. I made a good play. It was a tackle. But as I lay on my face, my right hand outstretched. So someone decided to walk over and step on my right hand, hoping to break it. It didn't break my hand. The bone held up. But when they removed their cleats from my right hand, every fingernail on my right hand was ripped off. That's when I knew rage. Now, my father was a very peaceful man. He didn't believe in violence. He didn't believe in speaking out. But then there was my brother Reed, or as we called him, Reed. Now, Reed was the kind of fellow, if you looked at him the wrong way, said the wrong thing to him, he would punch you in your face. If he couldn't hit you with his hands, he had a bag of jagged rocks ready to hit you in the head with him if he could. That was Reed. And Reed would always tell me, never take low, Paul, never bend at the knee. If they hit you, you hit back twice as hard. Well, I stood there grimacing in pain, and I thought of my father's philosophy, which I followed for the most part of my life, and I thought of Reed's philosophy, which I followed sometimes. Hot philosophy, Reed's philosophy. Somehow Reed's philosophy made more sense to me at the time. Also, we were playing football, And as we all know, you're supposed to get hit in football. I went right back to the next play. I didn't care if my hand was hurting or bleeding or not. There were three big men in front of me. I made a wide sweep and I knocked them all down. Then I went after the man who stepped on my hand. I grabbed him and lifted him up over my head. I was about to break him in two. I was about to kill him. At that point, the coach yelled, "Run, son! You're on the team!" And that's how I got on the rugby football team. Having my nose broken, my shoulder dislocated, my hand decimated by nearly being killed and nearly killing someone. So I decided I was going to join the baseball team, the track and field team, the basketball team. I joined all those teams because they saw on that day that if anybody ever put their hands on this Negro, that would be their life. And that was it. No more problems at Rutgers in terms of sports. I did very well. I earned about 15 varsity letters. During my playing, I was called the best football player in America. I was All-American, 1917 and 1918. Now, of course, I could not just play sports. I had to keep up my academic studies. And that's what Papa wanted, so I kept it up. Kept up my reading and my studying, and in my junior year, I was voted Phi Beta Kappa, fraternity of scholars. That became a very bittersweet year. The man who was most important to me, and who influenced me more than anyone, he died. Now, I had entered into all of the oratorical contests in college. I won freshman year, sophomore year, the junior year being the most important. And my papa would always come to these contests, cheer me on. Well, he was ill, and he still encouraged me to enter into that oratorical contest. The oratorical contest was to take place on May 20th, 1918. And my father, he died May 17th. And my heart was so heavy that I couldn't think of even breathing, let alone an oratorical contest. So my brother William came to me again. He said, "You know, Paul, Pop would have wanted this. But Paul, you enter into that contest." So I did. And I won it. And I entered the senior year, and I won that one. Also in my senior year, I was voted valedictorian, #1 in my class. And I swore on that day that my life would be a testament to his. You know, during the past 8 years, things were very difficult. And the wind of adversity blew. I would hold out my arms as I'm about to put them around his shoulders as I did as a child. And I asked, "How am I doing, Pop?" I hope I'm doing right by you. Well, I graduated. I graduated from Rutgers in 1919. I wasn't clear what I wanted to do, but I knew I had to be of service because that's what Papa wanted. And so I decided that I was going to become a lawyer. Not that I had any great love for the law, particularly as it practice on Negroes in this country, but I figured I could help in some way. And so I went to Columbia Law School. And while there, some interesting things happened. I met my wife at Columbia Law School. Eslanda Cardozo Good. I call her Essie for short. And it must be said that Eslanda was the one who really pushed me into becoming an actor and a singer. I also had to play a little professional football while at Columbia Law School to help pay for my law degree. Now, due to Eslanda encouraging, I entered into various plays and musicals. And I was involved in a play by an English woman called Taboo or Voodoo. I still don't know what the play was about. Perhaps I could give it to one of you, and maybe you could tell me. In any case, I entered into this play, and we did a Broadway run, which was very short. The play was so bad. And then we toured it somehow in London. It was in 1922. And while in London, I met a Mr. Lawrence Brown. And Lawrence Brown was a brilliant musician, composer, pianist, arranger. And Lawrence Brown believed in bringing forth Negro folk songs and Negro spirituals. These were the songs that I heard when I was a child growing up in Princeton. These were the songs of joy, of sadness, of resistance. These were the songs that the slaves, my forebears, sang in order to overcome the pain of slavery. These songs were not to be embarrassed by, or to be ashamed of. These songs were to be embraced by the entire world. So, in 1925, Lawrence Brown and I formed a partnership where we sang nothing but Negro folk songs and Negro spirituals. The first 5 years we were together for 5 years straight. We were the only ones who have done that. Also, between 1924 and 1925, my acting career started to come into play. I had done a play at the Harlem YMCA called Simon the Civilian. And I believe the great playwright Eugene O'Neill had seen the production. And so, he wrote a play specifically with me in mind, called All Got Chillin' Got Wings, which would be performed at the Provincetown Playhouse in Greenwich Village in New York. Now, this was a play about interracial love. Somehow, the Ku Klux Klan got wind of it. And they said that if that thing goes on, we're going to burn down the theater, and there's going to be blood in the streets. And so Eugene said, okay, why don't we hold off on that? And let's do a revival of the Emperor Jones, which of course he also wrote. Now, I did not originate the role of the Emperor. That was the great Charles Gilbert. But we did it, and it was a major success. And then ultimately we were able to do All God's Children Got Wings, and no burning down of theaters, and no blood was running in the streets. And both of those things were widely praised. And that really begun my artistic career. Now, in 1927, I decided to go to London, to England, because, well, Negro artists have a hard time performing work that show us as human beings here in this country. So I thought I would have a better shot in London, as did many artists in Europe. And in 1928, I was in the production of Showboat, and it was a London production, and it was a major hit. It made me a major star, to the degree where the Daily would be concerned about what my wife and I were eating and what we were wearing. That's how big a success it was. But something happened to me. In 1928, when I was coming out of the theater, I heard the singing in the streets. And the singing sounded so good, I fell in with it. These men were from Wales. They were Welsh coal miners. And they marched all the way from Wales all the way to London to demand that they be treated as human beings, as men. And so they told me the entire story. And I got some of my friends who were in the plays to donate money, to donate, well, food and clothing to these men. And we got a whole boxcar we were able to send back on training. And I was able to give them their first meal in days. And they said to me, you know, Paul, you're a big star, but you're one of us. You're working class. And that truly began my relationship with the working class of Europe, certainly of London and of Wales. I began a relationship with the mill workers of Manchester, England, in their struggle. I met many African students and dock workers who were talking about colonialism, because so I became involved in that. Then, of course, there were the drum beats of fascism, and I went ultimately to Republican Spain. Well, I was with the Republican forces in their fight against Franco. And all of these things were happening at the same time in Europe, and everything was affecting me greatly. In 1934, I was asked by the great film director Sergei Eisenstein to come to the Soviet Union, basically because he wanted to do a film about the Haitian Revolution, and he wanted me to star in it. And so I went. I also went on the encouragement of many other people, friends of mine, who said, Paul, go to the Soviet Union and see how people who look like us, who were treated like we were, see how they fared under socialism, or under the communism, this new system. And so I went, and I was quite pleased with what I saw. How people who were considered to be backwards, who would not be, quote, civilized in 1,000 years, they were taking part of the nation in less than 20. The Soviet Constitution, Article 123, stated that racism was against the law. You can't imagine how that made me feel as a Negro coming from America, where I could be lynched, segregated against. So in 1939, I came back to the United States because of the echoes of World War II. Now, backtracking a little bit, that incident I was telling you about that happened on my way to the Soviet Union. You see, we stopped in Berlin, and some of Hitler's brown shirts began surrounding us. Now, my wife was very fair-skinned, and there was a friend of ours who was a white woman. Her name is Marie Seton, who was a writer. And they didn't like this big black man standing with these two seemingly white women. And so I turned to Marie and said, you know, this is how a lynching starts. Now, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was just trying to find out which one I could get first, because I was not going to be the only victim here. Fortunately, we were able to get on the train. And that's when I knew that fascism had to be fought. So when I came back to the United States, I was totally politicized. And everything I do, and everything I've done to this point is for three reasons. The complete equity and freedom of my people here in this country, the Negro people. Two, the freedom from colonialism of my African brothers and sisters and others fighting against colonialism. And three, the complete equality and dignity and fair treatment of all oppressed, all working class people all over this world. And I have my passport. I was asked by Stratford Avon in London, England, to portray Othello again. And I told them I would. I cannot wait to go and visit and see and to hug those people who were involved in speaking for me and standing up for me, going through this difficult time. I have, in closing, one song to sing, one more. It's called Climbing Jacob's Ladder. oftentimes sing at the end of my concert. Now, I'm going to change the lyrics a little bit. Now, usually when I sing Climbing Jacob's Ladder in a church, I have to stick to the original lyrics. But being that I'm not in a church, and being that we all come from different backgrounds, I'm going to change the word soldiers of the cross to soldiers in this fight. Because we're all in this fight to better our lives, to better the lives of those around us. Also, when I begin to wave my arms like this, I want you to join me. Please don't leave me singing up here by myself. Climbing Jacob's Ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We're soldiers in this fight. Island, island, give God the glory. Island, island, give God the glory. Island, island, give God the glory. We're soldiers in this fight. We are climbing higher and higher. We are climbing higher and higher. We are climbing higher and higher. We're soldiers in this fight. Join me. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We're soldiers in this fight. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We're soldiers in this fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Paul? Yes.
I'd like to know what rule or law or resolution was used to take your passport in, was it 40, 42?
There was a case, you want to know what rule of law took the force passport. That's a good thing. The State Department, not sure what law it was, but the State Department stated that Paul Robeson's travel abroad is not in the best interest of the United States. And you have to question what interest are they talking about. But in any case, that's when it may very well have been that number. And that's when the passport was confiscated. And well, actually, at first I didn't give it, but then they would say if I caught, even in Canada, which does not require a passport, I would be arrested. So yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
I was reading of your many accomplishments, and one of them was you were invited to go and sing for the Chinese. What was your impression, or did you get to go there?
I was invited. I never got a chance to go to China. They were meant, interestingly enough, I didn't get a chance to go to sub-Saharan Africa either. The only time I went to Africa was when I went to Egypt to do a film called Jericho. But no, that was one of the regrets. Again, there were many people who invited me, but I could not come because I was kept here. I could not leave. Anyone else? Yes.
I was looking last night, I couldn't resist looking with Wikipedia and looking you up. And I kept reading and reading and reading and reading. I thought, how are you going to do this today? There's so much in this life that happened, and you did an incredibly good job.
Oh, you're talking about that gentleman trying me. Okay, thank you. I will tell him. I will tell him. Yeah.
Well, I have a question for the other guy too. I was wondering, what about Paul Robeson, his career, has inspired him the most?
What was the thing about my career that inspired me most? Singing. Singing. Because the voice is how we communicate. And to know that, you know, there's been a great deal, I've done a great deal of examination in terms of folk music and how folk music basically comes from the people. And there is a connection that takes place between the folk music of different people of the world, how we're connected in that way. And I feel that all human beings are connected because of our music. So singing, that's the first thing we greet each other. We speak, we sing. So music, singing is the thing that's most important. Out of all the things I do, singing. Yeah.
Did you ever become a lawyer? Did you ever become a lawyer?
No. And I'll tell you why. I mean, thank goodness I didn't. I was working in a law firm, and I asked the secretary, would she take dictation? And she said, I don't take dictation from niggas. Excuse the language. And there were people who said, well, you know, Paul, look, we will, you know, fund a firm for you. We will give you a practice, but the fact is, many people will not hire me simply because of me being black. And even black people will not hire me at that time. And so, as it turns out, that was not the thing for me to do. If I were to engage in any kind of law, I would like to teach constitutional law. Because I would like people to know about their constitutional rights. So that would be me in law. But no, yeah, I never got a chance in that regard. Practice. Someone had their hand. Okay, yeah.
You and your wife have children?
I have one son named Paul Jr. This being 1958, he's 30 years old. My son he went to Cornell University, electrical engineer. He graduated in the top 10% of his class. So I'm quite proud of him. He very much has been assisting me a great deal in these things during this difficult time. Yeah.
Did any of your siblings rise up, do neat, great things?
She wanted to know if any of my siblings did what I did, per se. My brother William, my oldest brother, he went to the medical field, although I would say that his main focus should have been medical research. So he really never, although he was constantly in school, he was what we call the brains of the family, really. He was constantly in school. Went to Lincoln, went to University of Pennsylvania, might have went to Howard at some point. He was constantly going to school, but he was much more restless. His mind was about research. I wish he would have went into that profession. I told you about my brother Reed. Reed didn't. His life was not as, I guess, successful as the other person. And again, my brother William and my brother Reed had passed away. But Reed had become like involved with a hotel, the manager of a hotel in Detroit. Then my sister Marion, she's a school teacher, or retired school teacher. She's living in Philadelphia. And my brother Ben, is a pastor, like my father. And he was the pastor of the AME Zion Church in Harlem. Mother Zion, you know, so I would say my brother is successful, but none of them to the degree that I was. But to me, they were all successful because they all influenced me in myriad ways. One more question. Yes.
How many languages?
Oh! How many languages? Young people always ask that question. I would say fluently 18. And functionally, if you add on to that, about maybe 26 or more. And I've sang in many more languages. Again, because of my fascination with the voice and with languages and learning how other people think, and you learn how they think, because you speak like them, learn how they think and how they respond to you. Last question, yeah. So,
You didn't talk too much about your vocal training, where I assume you may have learned some foreign languages. You talk a little about your musical career.
I am not a trained singer. And there's a reason. There were people who tried to push me into being a trained singer. And I didn't want to do that because when one sings the music of the people, they're not trained. So I wanted to be authentic in that regard. So when I sing these songs, it's unvarnished. But no, I was not trained. I had some work done in terms of trying to maintain my voice through the, because when you're doing concerts, you have to maintain your voice. But no, I'm not trained, and I purposely did that. I want to thank you all for your question. Thank you. Okay. All right. Last thing here. This is Marvin Jefferson. Anyone have any questions for Marvin about that? Yes, sir.
Yes. I know you've taken your performances back to the Northern Board of Education. Were you ever invited to go to Princeton or Somerville and even back to Rutgers?
I was invited to go to Princeton. I did that. Somerville, I was there. Westfield, I was there. And Rutgers, it was the, I think 100th anniversary. It was in 2019. It was the 100th anniversary of Paul graduating. And so they invited me to give the valedictory speech. You know, at the very place. At the very place, he gave it. So that was very special to me. So yeah, I've been in Somerville a few times, and Princeton, and Westfield. The only place I haven't been really is Philadelphia. That's the only place. But yeah, I've been back to Rutgers a few times. Oh yeah. Yeah, man.
Did you perform any of this there while you was at Rutgers?
Yeah, I did it at the New Brunswick Public Library, and I also, as I stated, I read Paul's valedictory speech on the anniversary of his graduating from Rutgers. It was 2019 because he graduated in 1990. Yeah. Any other questions about Paul? Me? No. Oh yeah.
Could you tell us a little more about the end of his life, how old he was, when he died?
Sure. Paul lived the last, I guess, 12, 11 years in Philadelphia. He lived with his sister, Marion. He was 77 years old when he died. He died January 23rd, 1976. There's a lot that happened when he traveled, when he left, in 58, and he went to do Othello, and his health broke down. There's a lot of speculation as to what happened. Some say because of the pressure that he went through, he had, issues. Others say that his son, others say that he was drugged to make him depressive and suicidal because he tried to commit suicide twice. And both people have very good points, you know, because the fact of the matter is the FBI had been really concerned about Paul Robeson's health up until the day he died. So they saw Paul as someone to fear. So it is quite possible that there was some malfeasance. And it's also possible that because of the pressure that he'd gone through for those 8 years, that it really affected him. But, you know, he came back here in 1963, and he retired in 1965, and then he went to live with his sister, you know, and he lived out the rest of his days in Philadelphia.
As time goes by, it's easier to believe that story.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That's in part of the actually it was communist because he was a Russian, right?
Well, he was there because they thought he was a communist. Oh no, actually, let me say this. The reason why they took away his passport, not because they thought he was a communist. They took away his passport because of his involvement in the anti-colonialist struggle in Africa. And the State Department admitted that. They said that's why the passport was taken away. That's what they meant by he doesn't serve the best interests of the United States. There's a lot of questions you can ask about that, but that's why the passport was taken away. Not because he was a communist, not because of what they thought, even though he wasn't. But because of his involvement in the anti-colonialist movement in Africa in particular. Yep. Thank you, folks. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.